So good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. It's already 3 minutes past 10, but we thought that there were people still incoming, so we just waited a bit to make sure that we really have everybody on board that took the time to listen to us today. And so this is our first webinar in which we'll present our newest solution, which is Next Generation Blixt. And we are really thrilled about sharing some great insights with you today. So this session, of course, will be recorded as usually, and we'll distribute it afterwards for everybody that maybe cannot listen to the entire session or couldn't join us right now. Also, what would be great is if you could give me a hands up signal if you can listen to me or hear me and see the screen that we're currently sharing. That would help me just know that everything's working on all right on the technical side. So some hand raises would be great, please. Okay, I feel as if there are some hand raises coming in, so I'll move forward. I'm glad that everything works out fine. So everyone is on mute. However, this doesn't mean that we don't want you to participate. So please, if there are questions throughout the sessions, just make sure to use not the question, but the chat tool within GoToWebinar, and we'll make sure to look at your questions during the session and answer all unanswered questions via email afterwards. So there will be all questions, all answers to your questions right afterwards. So let's get right into it. So FACT-Finder grew significantly in the past year, and this is especially due to the acquisition of Loop54, the market leader of AI in the Nordics. And this is why today we really want to point out the great benefits of this new cooperation and this merging of two companies and two technologies. And when I'm talking about we, I'm talking about these three gentlemen that joined me today and myself. And so let's have a quick introduction. So first of all, Philip. I guess that this is your first webinar with FACT-Finder.
That's true,
and, yeah, it would be great if you could tell the audience a bit about yourself and your role within the company, please.
Yeah, so my name is Philip Pettek, and I'm the Director of Product Management. So I joined FACT-Finder last year in November, and to be honest, I had the great luck to start my work with the awesome project of integrating the Loop54 AI into the FACT-Finder environment. And yeah, so I will show you later how that is working.
So for everybody, Philip is the one, or Philip and his team are the ones creating the great user interface that we're having with FACT-Finder by making sure that the engine becomes more and more sophisticated in its core while remaining super user-friendly and intuitive to use. And so we're working on a lot of projects right there, and Philip and his team do a great job. Secondly, we got one of the founders of Loop54 with us. So Joel, nice to have you here. Would you introduce yourself as well, please?
Thank you, Samantha. Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders of Loop54, and I've been working as the VP of Development at Loop54. And I joined FACT-Finder with the acquisition in October last year. So since then, I've been working as one of the managers of the engineering team. And today I will tell you a little bit more about the technology behind Loop54 and what's also powering Blixt.
Great. Thank you, guys. And then we got the person ensuring constant development and growth with its team, Steven, also coming from Loop54. Could you also introduce yourself, please?
Thanks, Samantha. My name's Stephen Batley, work as VP of Business Development, so with the sales team, and trying to talk to as many prospective or new FACT-Finder Blixt customers as possible in the Nordics and all of Northern Europe.
Great, thanks. And then last but not least, myself. Some of you might already know me from other webinars and YouTube videos, for example. So I'm Sam. I've been with FACT-Finder for 3.5 years, and I'm managing the consulting team. And our role is basically to provide customers with trainings, best practices, and develop and translate business strategies into the engine and just help with everyday use and share knowledge about the engine. And I'll be today's host. And so let's get into the presentation now. So, Stephen, as you just mentioned, you're focusing on our business development. What makes us different? What makes us stand out as FACT-Finder and Loop54 in this combination?
I think, thanks, Sam. I think what's really special now with the acquisition that FACT-Finder did of Loop54 was that we're able to take the best of both worlds. So we're able to take the best of the tooling, the control, and the phonetical or language understanding that FACT-Finder has, and combine that with the AI and machine learning that Loop54 has built. And really what that means is it's just AI that you can control. So instead of having that black box where you're just trusting the machine learning to do all the work, you can now work with FACT-Finder and AI together, so you can really have that control and really unveil what's going on inside the AI engine. What that then means we can do for a customer perspective is we can go beyond segmentation and work with one-to-one personalization. And so every customer that comes to an e-commerce website, they will get a unique purchase journey depending on both what they've purchased previously and what they're looking to buy today.
Okay, so thanks for the summary. That's super interesting. And one thing that stood out to me, and I think might also be interesting to the audience, is the topic of personalization that you just mentioned. So personalization already is a part of the FACT-Finder, the classical FACT-Finder as we know it. And so how did that change, and what happened to FACT-Finder's personalization in that context?
So the FACT-Finder customers today that are on Next Generation, they still have their personalization. And really what Blixt does is it takes it one step further. So it's a leap forward when it comes to the personalization. And now we have the ability to personalize in session. So depending on, say, I come to a fashion retailer, if I'm interacting with products for a man versus products for a woman, we can, in that session, personalize depending on the intent of the user, or we can also take the past purchase history personalization a step further than we could. But we still have that personalization in Next Generation. It's just that Blixt is kind of the next step after that.
Okay, so we got like the classical FACT-Finder personalization in FACT-Finder Next Generation, and FACT-Finder Next Generation Blixt is the one with the new personalization powered by Loop54, right?
Exactly. And that's what allows us to really rely on the AI with the one-to-one personalization there to adjust the results.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the clarification.
No worries.
Okay. So as you mentioned, we can take control of every function in the online shop, but also now there's AI working. Maybe you can take us or tell us more about that while looking at that slide and break it down for us. Yeah,
sure. So I think what we're able to do now with our new product, FACT-Finder Blixt, is that we still have the FACT-Finder core. So we still have I think we won the best search award the last few years in a row. So we still have the best site search possible. And then we have the extra additional functionality on top of that, like geo search. So my search results may change depending on what my closest retailer is or delivery time, so forth. We have the predictive basket and, of course, customer specific pricing, which is also often a requirement for many of our B2B clients. But then what we have as well on top of that is now a very strong recommendations and personalization suite. And that's really where Blixt is taking kind of things to the next level, because we can not only personalize on a one-to-one basis, but we can also offer recommendations that are very hard to put together without using a machine learning AI like GOLEM, which Joel will talk about later.
Okay, that all sounds very interesting in theory, but let's see how all of this works in action. And this is why I would hand over to you, Stephen, and make you share your screen.
Sure.
To maybe see what it means in a more tangible way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really what sets us apart here, is that we can show the AI in action and we can help to really unveil that black box. So what I've got here is a demo environment where I can show how the personalization from Loop54 works before Philip will then afterwards go into more detail how that ties into the FACT-Finder Blixt side of things. But if we look purely at the personalization, that works in two different ways with the AI. It's session intent. So what purchase journey am I currently on? What am I looking to buy? And it's past purchase history. So what did I buy last time? Can we, on a one-to-one level, personalize the experience based off of that? So if I'm going to show you how that works, first I can look at the session intent. So what customer journey, what am I looking to buy today? The way that we do this is it's updated within the session, but we can look at really any of the product data that we have. But in this example, I'm going to be looking to buy a TV. And so what will happen once we start interacting with products is the AI will immediately understand that this particular user in this particular session is most likely looking to buy a TV because that's just what they've interacted with. Then in my next search, should I search for something that could be related to TVs, say LG? We will show the TVs at the top of the search results. And this is just like as if you are in a physical store and you were in the TV section. What is it that you're most likely looking for? So if I'm searching for anything related to TVs, like LG, for example, it sells a big range of products, 116 in this demo environment, for example, we know that most likely the TVs are relevant. But we also know that people are often on multiple purchase journeys at once. So, for example, I was just window shopping for TVs, and really what I'm looking for is a smartphone. And then if I'm to go in and interact with a smartphone, and then in my next search go back to that LG search, I'm showing the smartphones first. So it's as if in this session, like in a physical store, I've walked from the TVs to the smartphone section. And we can do this in real time with one-to-one personalization, depending on what people are looking at buying today. And so this also then would cross-pollinate into, say, for example, the product or the navigation. So if I then went to, say, Sony, who sells both TVs, phones, and lots of other products, we're showing the phones from Sony first because I've just interacted with an iPhone, so I'm most likely looking to purchase that today. The other type of one-to-one personalization that we have is depending on what I've purchased previously. And that's whereby if we know that you've got a favorite brand or a favorite color, say, we can remember that so that next time you come back to the store, we can use a first-party cookie, that's your cookie at the e-com store, and we can adjust the result set to suit. So, for example, if I now search for an espresso machine and I purchase this silver Sage by Heston espresso machine, which is by far the most expensive espresso machine that we sell, then we can remember that preference for color, brand, and also that I'm not very price sensitive in this example. And so that next time I come back to the store and I'm looking at buying kitchenware, because that is similar in the type of product, we will show my favorite brand, my favorite color, and also the other more expensive toasters up the top, because we know that previously I purchased a silver this brand, and very expensive espresso machine in the past. That, at a very high level, is how Loop54 works with the one-to-one personalization. And then if I stop showing my screen now, we can then start to have a look at how that ties into Blixt and the control that you can have now that we've merged the two technologies.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thanks for this introduction into Loop54. And I think we really could see that this kind of personalization works on different layers and is able to consider very different information, and scenarios can be also covered with that, various scenarios. And so, yeah, as you just mentioned, we just saw how Loop54 in its core works, or we got an idea of it. And this is why I would like to hand over to Philip to now see how FACT-Finder and Loop in their great marriage might work together for customers in future. So Philip, I'll hand over to you.
Perfect. I hope I shared my screen and you can see it. So
yes.
Stephen, thanks a lot for the great introduction. And as Samantha already mentioned, so now let's have a look into the FACT-Finder user interface and see how we combined the two worlds. But first of all, to be honest, let's again summarize a bit. So because shopping experience is based on the quality of the search results, the more relevant, the higher the conversion rate in the end, and for sure, the satisfaction of the shopper. It sounds pretty simple, but it's not that easy. So because what is happening is that the context of the human searches are not that easy to interpret for machines, as they really do not have, let's say, language skills like we have. So let's think about an outdoor shop. And if you are looking for a pack, you will probably think of a backpack and not of a pack of travel towels or whatever kind of a pack. That's pretty clear to us as humans, as we are moving within that kind of context, and it's pretty intuitively for us. But machines cannot easily interpret that, as well as they not really get the context in that moment, and maybe as well not from the product data itself. And that can lead at the end to a bad shopping experience. I will show that in a second. And to make that visible, let's jump into the NG Blixt cockpit. So there we have the possibility really to see in real time how searches would look like. And we can, let's say, add their different settings, see how different rules, for example, are applying, how user journeys are looking like, and as well, we can compare that one-to-one. But later I come back to that. Let's use the search for the pack. And as you can see, based on the pure text matching, so we have a total mismatch in what we thought, what we will see, and what the results looking like. So that is not really matching our context in that moment. But let's bring in there the magic of the first part of the personalization we added here. So we can add here a second search. And right now I will activate the personalization with the personalizations module here. And magic is happening. So that is exactly what we would expect if we are searching in an outdoor shop for a pack. So for a trekking or a travel backpack, whatever. So that is what we are adding here. So it's really adding the contextual understanding in the very first way that brings a huge improvement of the search results. So Joel will explain it later in detail how the magic works. But to say it in a nutshell, so this is what you can see right now here is what most of the shoppers would interact with that specific search query. And we call it as well wisdom of the crowd. And compared to what you can see on the left side, pure text matching, then you can see on the right side what we did here with the first part of the AI is awesome. So at the end, it leads to more human-like behavior. And not only that, but you will benefit as well from less manual work. E.g., in the past, you had to, let's say, optimize that by adding synonyms, for example, by adding ranking rules, or by influencing the result by campaigns, whatever. So investing a lot of manual effort to really have that in place. Another cool thing about that, by bringing in there some kind of a general relevance, is that this is acting pretty fast. So Blixt is really learning pretty fast and already based on small amount of data. That enables you to really act and interact with seasonal effects. I think a good example here is helmet. So as you can see on the left side, the pure text matching will display a lot of ski helmets. So, but the season is over. So on the right side, what we enriched with general relevance, you can see that climbing helmets and stuff like that are really pushed. And that's awesome. So because in the summer season, that is what most of the people would look like in the context by searching helmet in an outdoor store. And that's really awesome. So after we brought in their general relevance to the search result, let's come into the part where we will have a look really on what we are doing with the one-to-one personalization, what Stephen already explained. So the context the shoppers are moving within is not only influenced by the general relevance and the general behavior. So it's much more based on the individual interests and preferences that are determining the intention behind the search query. And the exact same search query can be very different for different shoppers. And with Blixt, so we are really ensuring to match the individual context of the shopper and moving beyond segmentation to the intent personalization, what Stephen already explained. Let's have a look into the demo shop. Just give me a second. So here within our demo shop, so we can really show and make it experienceable to see what kind of a shopper's journey the website and the shop visitor would have. So in that case, I would like to show you something. But first, let's have a look on the brand Falke. So maybe some of you know how the search would look like for that. And in the first part, I would like to add here a new session ID. And as you can see, so it's changing. And again, what we can see here right now is what most people would interact with by searching for Falke. So it's a mixture of underwear, of the socks, stuff like that. So, but with that new kind of a session, so I have no interaction right now. I will go back and I will start my shopper's journey searching for socks. So the result here as well is based on general relevance, and you can see it's a mixture as well from different brands and different kind of socks. So I will go to Smart Wool sock here and interact with that sock. And by clicking on that, I have shown my intent in that moment. If I'm now moving back to Falke, I can really see, okay, so it's changing. So based on my intent, I just showed with the interaction before. So we added the personal intent to the general relevance we had before here for the shopping experience, really starting by just one click. And yeah, so that's really awesome. And it's not only based on the intent based on the session, but as well as Stephen mentioned as well, we are considering the shopper's history. Let's go back to the cockpit and have there, again, a more detailed view on how we can make it visible. Just give me a second. So I prepared already a shopper to showcase the personal influence. And the shopper has some kind of interaction with hiking stuff before. And yeah, I showed as well some kind of, let's say, brand affinity. So within the personalization module, we can bring in here as well a specific session ID. So that means that we will now have on the left side the general view based on pure text matching. But what we can do is as well bring in here the general relevance and compare it one-to-one on the right side with what would the result look like for that specific user. So let's have a look for hiking. Hiking. And on the right side as well for hiking. So as you can see on the left side, there are the hiking guides pushed. But as I was interacting with shoes before, So I will get displayed a lot of shoes here, and as you can see, with some kind of more brand push. And that the same is working as well for shoes. So you can see most of the people would interact by shoes with running shoes and different brands as compared to what I showed from my personal intent before with the hiking shoes. So I think that this is pretty cool really to visualize how the results would look like for an individual shopper. And that really makes it visible. So the intent is changing in real life. So as you have seen, so the queries are recognized and considered. And as the customer is moving around the shop, so the entire customer journey is personalized. So because we will figure out as quickly as possible, so what products the shoppers or the shopper itself in that moment is looking for, and we will change the entire, let's say, user journey and shopper journey in that moment. All right. So, but now let's bring in the human factor and the human control by ranking rules and campaigns. So therefore, let's check for pants, how that would look like. Again, on the left side, you can see what most of the people would interact with. And on the right side, the personalized view. But let's take out there the personalization, the personal intent. And let's have a look how we can influence it by activating different kind of ranking rules. So by activating these ranking rules, as you can see on the blue label, so we added a boost for the brand Salomon. And with the red, we boosted the brand Engel. And again, let's add another ranking rule to boost products that are discounted. And as you can see, the entire result is changing. So that is awesome. And in addition, we can add there as well, not only ranking rules with that we can influence the AI, but as well, we can bring in here some campaigns. And you can use the campaigns as well to push products at a certain position and specific products you're choosing by yourself really to place them within the search result. And as you can see, so the search results are looking quite different based on the, let's say, boosts we have, on the campaigns we have, and on the ranking rules we applied here.
Philip, so just for clarification, it basically means that we still have the manual configuration possibilities where people are used to from FACT-Finder in the past. However, we can decide to now put personalization powered by Loop on top. Is that right?
Yeah, that is where we are combining the manual part from FACT-Finder and bringing in there the awesome AI from Loop. But to be honest, so we are giving here only a direction to the AI. So at the end, the AI overrides the ranking rules, for example. So if the learning or the individual preferences speak heavily against what the customer's intent is. So that is awesome because with that, we avoid the effect of one size fits all that we would apply with the ranking rules. Because let's say ranking rules are in that moment very general and are not considering the individual shopper. But by having the AI in addition to that, so we have a slight influence by the ranking rules, and we are avoiding the effect of the one size fits all. So because you will have at the end your personal intent and the products based on what you're interacting with. So again, let's summarize. So first of all, with Blixt, you will get more relevant searches by less manual effort, and that including as well very fast adjustment on seasonal effects. So that's what we are calling wisdom of the crowd in that moment. The second step is that we will bring in their personalization that is going beyond segmentation based on intent or as well on the purchase history. And the third thing is that we are adding the manual control as we just explained right now. So you can bring in there your business goals, as we have seen here, for example, pushing brands, pushing products in sale, for example, or as well pushing products with a high margin. And the best at the end is you can really make it visible. So this is not black box anymore. So you can really make it visible and can get an understanding of what is happening for a specific customer, for a specific interaction, whatever. So I think that's really cool and outstanding.
Great.
And yeah, thanks a lot. Now back to Samantha and Joel, who will explain how the magic works in detail.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. So thank you so much for this practical insight, Philip and Stephen, to see Loop at first and then this combination of Loop and FACT-Finder to really show how these two very different cores can actually work together. And I think it's like the sweet spot between manual adjustments for a search optimization and the capabilities of artificial intelligence, and like mixing that up in a perfect way. And I also think it's a great way of introducing artificial intelligence into online shops, especially to users that are used to having the full control of their online shop and now getting to try what it means to also rely on artificial intelligence when it comes to different topics, as we saw with Philip. And yeah, since we got these two cores, there is GOLEM, the core of Loop54, which Joe will be telling us more about. And also, I think it's a very important aspect when trying to understand what differentiates Loop54 from other personalization solutions in the market and why we chose to work together as companies. So, Joel, would you go on introducing us to GOLEM and tell us what GOLEM is and what it does?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sam. So what is GOLEM and how does it work? And the short answer is that GOLEM is the AI model that has been driving all of Loop54 features and that is now part of FACT-Finder. But to tell you how it works and what it does, we first need to go into some background. And traditionally, there have been many approaches to try to solve relevance in e-commerce. And it is a problem well worth solving because showing the correct product at the right time, it makes a difference between a purchase and a bounce. And simple text matching search engines are not sufficient here. So people have been trying to come up with ways to improve the results of a text search. And some of those are manual rules, conditional popularity learning, and contextual learning, which is what we use in GOLEM. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail into each of these. So starting with manual rules, which is where an administrator who is knowledgeable of the catalog and of the audience manually decides which products to show. And one way to do this is with visual merchandising. So you would get to drag and drop products to decide which products to show for each query and each page on the e-commerce site. Another one is ranking rules, so that a particular category or brand or keyword is associated with each query. And of course, you can do this non-binary as well by assigning weights to products and product attributes to try to create a balanced result. And this gives the retailer a very fine-grained control of which products show up where. But it's also incredibly time-consuming, and you can realistically only do this for a small part of all the queries. Unfortunately, in our experience, search queries are widely distributed, and tuning the top, say, 1,000 queries only covers a minority of all traffic. And it's also very hard to maintain because language changes and the catalog changes as well. So especially for verticals like fashion and electronics, the entire catalog might change once a year or even more, and you have to start all over again with all the rules and the weighting. So that's why people have tried to come up with a bunch of ways to automate this work. And one very common way is what we like to call conditional popularity learning. And if someone says that they're doing AI in product search, I would say a good bet is that this is what they're doing. And it works like this. So to continue with the kitchenware examples, if a visitor searches for a query, in this case kettle, the algorithm takes note of which product they subsequently click on or purchase. And it would give a small boost to that product the next time someone searches for kettle. And when enough people have done this over time, the results start to converge towards some kind of wisdom of the crowd optimum with the most popular products on top. And the main benefit here is, of course, that it's fully automated and it requires no manual intervention. But there are a lot of downsides, and one is I would say the biggest is that you have a lack of control here. There's no obvious way to blend this with the manual rules. And it's very easy to accidentally destroy the relevance by putting boosts on the wrong products or incorrectly configuring your manual rules, and how this blends together with the automation. Second, it easily gets stuck in a local optimum where the entire first page is filled with products that are relevant enough. And so no one would go to page 2 to find more products. And there might be gems hiding there that will now never get any clicks. So you never collect any data for those products, and it will get stuck in this local optimum. And this in turn means that it would require tons of data, often hundreds or even thousands of interactions for each query before a meaningful conclusion can be drawn. And so each of these small boosts has to be very small, and it will learn very slowly. And thus, again, you get the problem that it doesn't reach very far into the long tail of queries and only optimizes the first few thousand queries, or the most popular queries. Another problem is that there's no way to add products that the text matching engine didn't find, or remove products that are not relevant. So all it can do is move them up or down the result list. And since it requires so much data, it cannot reasonably be used for personalization. Unless, of course, you have customers who search for the same query hundreds of times, and that's pretty uncommon. So how do we solve this in a better way? And one of our main goals at Loop54 has been to challenge and try to move away from this tradition of viewing products as separate entities. And we wanted to create a model where interactions can the interactions made on a single product can be spread and affect hundreds or thousands of products at the same time. And we think that this is key to having a quick learning and impactful personalization. So how can we create this kind of model? Well, one key insight here is that a problem with a lot of machine learning is that the models rely on pattern matching. And this is very powerful if you have a lot of labeled data, because then you can do supervised learning and converge on a great model in the end. But in e-commerce, we don't really have this data. So we need another approach. And one insight is that humans generally don't need to see thousands of images of a dog to recognize a dog, right? Like many AI models do. Instead, we rely on clustering and categorization rather than pattern matching. So can we do something similar in e-commerce? To solve this, we created an algorithm that clusters products in using a large number of neural networks into a structure that acts as an alternative representation of the product catalog. And when visitors browse and interact, they're not interacting with the individual products of the catalog. Instead, they're interacting with this GOLEM model. And this has the capability to spread behavior to thousands of products on each click or purchase. And I know it's a little bit hand-wavy here with the magic, but unfortunately, my request for a 5-hour slot in this webinar was denied. So we'll have to talk about that later.
Yeah, maybe we can have a magic-only webinar.
I would like that. So what we end up with here is a model that understands these product clusters. And when someone searches for kettle, we would divide the results into context. For instance, here we can see a kitchenware context in red, training equipment in yellow. We have kitchen accessories or like cleaning things in green, and toys in blue. And the size of these contexts can be variable. So we can consider tiny variations in just the brand of kettles, or we can expand it to the whole of kitchenware. And when someone interacts here by clicking or purchasing, the interaction is then spread to all the products in the same context. And that way we can promote all of the kettles after just a few clicks, even if they originally were on page 2 or later. And it's fully automated, but it's also controllable, as Philip has shown already. And we have more features in this vein coming later. But the key difference here is that it's much easier to control this context instead of trying to control the individual products and trying to balance all of these rules. And it only needs a small amount of data, so it can quickly learn new language or slang or changes in the catalog, and it reaches much further into the long tail of the least popular queries. It can also add more products that the text matching engine didn't find, or it can remove products that are not relevant. And since we only need a very small amount of data, we can do it individually per user as well. And both Stephen and Philip has already showed this. And to use this example, if someone's first browses on training equipment and then searches for kettle, then we know to show the kettlebells on top instead of the actual kettles. And we talk a lot about search here, or at least I did, but it's important to remember that GOLEM is not a search engine in itself. It's a generalized model for solving relevance in e-commerce. So while we do use it for search, of course, we also use it for category navigation. We use it for recommendations. We can use it for newsletters. We can use it for content search. We can use it to help warehouse employees with picking. We can basically do whatever. We can train it on products. We can train it on user data, content pieces, whatever. There's no end to the possibilities here. And I would say the key takeaway from this part is that GOLEM is a unique innovation, and it's built fully in-house. And the way it models data differs radically from the competition. And that we're just using the tip of the iceberg here of GOLEM, and there will be a lot of more cool stuff to come.
Great. Thanks so much, Joel, for giving us some insights into GOLEM, and also for the first time, especially, I think, rather for the FACT-Finder oriented audience, they got to see what GOLEM does in Loop54, but also I hope that vice versa, maybe people knowing Loop got some insights on FACT-Finder and how this can work together.
I hope so.
So let's summarize again. I know we had a lot of insights. We went into the Loop demo, into the FACT-Finder and Loop demo, and now we really got more of the background information and this unique value that Loop54 brings in, especially with its personalization. And yeah, so look at the general benefits also from my perspective as consultant and kind of representing the user perspective in the company. So first of all, shop managers can save significant amount of times and keep control to execute their business strategy. Because as of now, FACT-Finder is a great solution. I work with it daily. I work with customers, and we have the opportunity to adjust as much and as little manually as we want. However, taking personalization and giving it that strong of a power by having AI understanding what people need just creates resources that we can now spend differently. For example, by more talking about strategy rather than adjusting individual search results, since GOLEM can take a lot of that away from us, since we saw with Stephen first, and then with Philip's entire demo afterwards. Another fact that I would like to mention is that we already got 4 customers being live with Blixt. One of them, for example, is a big online shop focusing on biking and everything around bikes and mountain bikes. I'm obviously not somebody that's a cyclist. You can tell that I'm not an expert, but they got everything around that, and they're live with Next Generation Blixt. And so we're already getting great experiences and gaining great insights into the value that it delivers to customers. And also there are a lot more customers to come, since we really try to talk about personalization, also show how important it is, and present these new capabilities that we created over the past few months. And last but not least, looking at GOLEM, on average, there's an increase of the conversion rate of 15% applying to online shops. And so, yeah, just as a summary again, from a consulting perspective, I already had the opportunity to work with Blixt. And yeah, as a consultant, I get to represent the user view. And I think that it is a great way of having this manual power for things that really matter and that I really need to translate in form of business strategy, right, relying on the AI. And also I see that it is something that people have to get used to fully trusting this AI and trusting that it does its job. But we got testimonials and we got proof and we got Loop54 that is a market leader for a reason. And so I can only motivate you to really look at this topic, and we'll be happy to join this journey with you or have it with you, since we got the experts on board with Steve and Joel, the entire Loop team, and great people like Philip making it work for the users. So a lot of insight, a lot of information. At the beginning of the session, I mentioned that question could be asked via the chat tool. And this is why I would like to go over to Q&A. So let me check the questions real quick. Okay, so we got a bunch of questions. We won't be able to answer all the questions throughout the webinar, just looking at the time. However, we'll make sure to reach out to everybody via email. So I'll just pick out a few questions that I think might be interesting to all of you guys. And then we'll make sure to follow up. So no question will remain unanswered. The first question that I got is, how long does it actually take to integrate Blixt? Maybe, Philip, this is something you could answer?
Yeah, so talking about existing customers who are already using Next Generation, so this is pretty fast. So we are talking here about days, so for sure. So we have to ensure that all the requirements are set and all the limitations are clear. And then it's just a matter of days and not of weeks, whatever. So at the end, we can handle that within a week. That's pretty awesome. So the next thing is that if you're a new customer, so this is a standard part of the integration project, and that is heavily depending on your personal setup that you are having and your shop system, stuff like that, and the way you are integrating FACT-Finder into your shop. So it's pretty hard to say that. So I think that would be best to have there an individual call and consultation really about that to get a good feeling. Because as mentioned, so adding the AI by Loop is here the smallest part, so can be handled within days.
Okay, so thanks for the question. And yeah, if you would want to have more details, just please reach out, as Philip just mentioned, and maybe we can discuss it and define it on a more individual way based on your specific case. Okay, great. Then a second question. First of all, we got compliments for the great presentation. So good job to you guys. And the question itself, could you please dive deeper into the requirements you have regarding product data that you need from the shop and shop system to make this one-on-one personalization possible? Maybe you could give us some basic information just to touch up on the topic, Loop54 guys.
Joel, would you like to take this, or shall I take it?
I can take it. So first of all, we need all of the product information with all the attributes, the titles, the categories, the brands, and all that stuff. Most of that is very likely already in your existing data feed. Second of all, we need interaction information from the customers, from the end users. We need click information, purchases, and add to cart events, stuff like that. So if we want to get up and running really quickly, and we don't already have an integration with FACT-Finder that sends all of this stuff, then sometimes we take an excerpt from your database and feed it into the algorithm, so we can sort of avoid a cold start scenario. And if you don't, we always make sure to use the existing integration. So we take the click events and everything that you're already sending and just pipe them all the way into GOLEM, so it learns from what you have already. So basically, it just needs to make sure that your click streams are set up correctly. But there's nothing more except for that.
Okay, so the click streams, and then of course, if it's a FACT-Finder customer, the information that already come via the data feed, so that we know the products and everything that is relevant according to that.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Then let's go with a third question. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we will answer all the rest via email. But I think 3 is a charm. So does Blixt work with all FACT-Finder versions? Philip?
So no, this is specifically an add-on that we developed for the next generation. So if you're using Next Generation, and there it doesn't matter. So then we can add there the loop personalization parts into it.
Okay, perfect. So we got a bunch of other questions. However, I think some of them might be quite detailed. So first of all, thank you very much to everybody who participated in this webinar and reached out with questions. And yeah, so if besides these questions, you would maybe want to have an in-depth demo to get more insights into how this machinery is working and how these two cores cooperate, please reach out. So if you're new to FACT-Finder and Loop54 or either one, you can reach out to Steven. He will have your back. Super nice, answering all the questions. And if you're an existing customer, then you can reach out to myself. And as I mentioned, we will share the presentation afterwards. So you will have our contact information. And also we will reach out to you answering your questions. And I think this closes our kickoff with Blixt. We're super excited, not only about merging these two solutions, but having a cool team out of Sweden working together with us and growing as a company. To make sure that we fit your requirements and learn from each other. So we had a great time so far, and I think this webinar represented this. And so thank you, everybody, for joining today, and have a nice rest of the week. Thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen, for helping me out.
Thank you.